Hello all, and welcome to another episode of the Heroic Review, where we, the cast of Heroic Tales, take a look at fanfiction, episodes, and other ponylicious things. I have with me today a small panel of pony experts. I am Goombasa, your moderator, and joining me today are Ramos.
Hola amigos.
And Webshoter.
Hello.
We will be taking a look today at Season 5, Episode 5 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Tanks for the Memories, written by Cindy Morrow, wherein Rainbow Dash makes many adorable faces and sounds, Twilight references Game of Thrones, and Applejack cries on the inside. So, let's get our general opinions for the episode out of the way. Gray, would you like to start us off?
Indeed. So, Season 5, Episode 5. 5 is my favorite number, by far, for many years, and this episode is going right along with that, because this is a fantastic episode. There's a great song, great story, great lesson behind it all, and there wasn't any slow bits, in my opinion. There was a couple predictable bits, but throughout the whole, it was a really good episode.
And Webshotter?
I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, yeah, there were some predictable moments, as Gray has already said, but all in all, it was still a very enjoyable episode.
And I will say, for my money, that after 2 weeks of what I consider to be very middle-of-the-road to mediocre stories, this is a fantastic episode. I enjoyed it immensely from beginning to end, and I think it has one of the best morals that I've seen in the show to date.
You, Reverb, and Saucepans seem to not be liking the last few episodes, although too bad they weren't here, but they did tell me that they did enjoy the episodes.
Yes, shout out to our fallen comrades who could not be here today because real life is a... So, moving on from our general opinions, do either of you have a topic of discussion that you want to kick us off on?
I do. Whenever I saw the name for this episode, Tanks for the Memories, my first instinct was, are they going to kill off Tank? And then they started talking as if Tank was not going to be there anymore. And I was slightly disappointed that it seems like they could have gone that direction with it and done a fantastic job with it. But I still like the way they went with it. It's pretty good, but they could have killed off Tank, as much as I like the guy.
That's one of the reasons why I say that this episode had such a fantastic moral, because they've already confirmed that this show will never be able to tangle with death. Basically, they pretty much confirmed it when they talked about the state of Applejack's parents. But this episode used hibernation as a metaphor for losing a pet. And in that way, I think it got the exact same message across very well. It teaches kids about coping with loss and what you can expect to deal with when things like that happen. Applejack even went through pretty much all 5 stages of grief over the episode. She went through anger, she went through denial, she went through bargaining, and finally she ended up at acceptance at the end of the episode.
You said Applejack. It was
Rainbow Dash.
Rainbow Dash, I'm sorry.
Although Applejack was a good example of what parents tell their kids when they go through loss. They'll be back in a few months, and then they just buy them another puppy.
So yes, I absolutely loved the moral of this episode, and I think it was handled very well, despite the limitations that they had to work with.
If anything, yes, losing a pet is one thing, but as you said before, the lesson of losing something or someone in general is also something that's good to learn as quickly as possible. Learning how to deal and move on with it.
In addition to having a great episode, I also thought that this was one of the funniest episodes that we've had in a while. Most episodes, they have a very good balance between the moral and the humor, and this one was no exception. In fact, I think the humor worked with the moral very, very well, because it was a very heavy moral if you're going to look at it as substituting hibernation for death. And so the amount of humor that we had in this episode was very welcome.
Very much so.
If anything, I can at least tell you what my favorite part was right now, if that's all right with you guys.
Yo, go ahead.
So, your open skies, your clear skies, who's on first,
Yes.
What's on second, I don't know's on third.
Yeah, the whole Abbott and Costello routine was wonderfully well done, and I enjoyed the voices that they gave those characters as well.
The fact that the writing staff acknowledged the fact that the names a lot of the ponies have can be used for confusion. We had Clear Sky, Open Sky, and then Fluffy Clouds.
I'm expecting fan fiction of them within the hour. Gray, you had something to say?
I was just wondering who wrote this episode.
It was written by Cindy Morrow.
Oh, Cindy Morrow wrote this. She's the one who wrote Sisterhood Social, Owls Well That End Well, The Showstoppers, Winter Wrap Up, and Griffin the Brush Off.
So it's actually been a while since we've had an episode written by her
Indeed,
then.
it's been. I think that's season 2 was the last one, unless. Oh.
Yeah, I don't think I heard a single season 3 or 4 episode in that list that you gave us. So yes, this is a triumphant return for Cindy Morrow to the show. So talking in terms of animation, this episode gave us a copious amount of new faces, particularly from Rainbow Dash, from her "Do I look angry" face to probably my favorite face of the episode, her Grinch grin when she decided she had to keep winter from coming. It just seems like DHX is bound and determined to give us at least one new face every single episode this season.
Not only are they giving us new faces every episode, it seems like, but also new locations, because that's something I know a lot of people have had problems with before, is everything takes place around places we know. They wanted to see more locations in season 5, and they're giving it to us. Every episode has had a new location in it.
What location are you referring to specifically in this episode?
The weather facility for Cloudsdale and the winter room specifically, with the lightnings in a bottle and the storm blower, whatever you want.
I wouldn't call that a new location. It's more like they're taking an old location and expanding upon it.
It felt like it was updated in a way, but all in all, I agree with both of you. It was an old location that we've seen before, but we got to see more of it in more detail. I have to say I was very impressed, and we at least now we know how they keep the water collected.
This is true. I'm sure. Actually, that brings up a good point that this episode is probably going to be loved by people who love headcanons as well.
Rainbow Factory.
We don't talk about that.
Now, we do know they do have that part of the factory in there. We just know it's not as dark.
Well, I don't remember if it was Reverb who brought it up. Oh, it was Reverb. He called it during the episode about how to solve the problem was tossing a couple ponies in there, and that's exactly what they did.
Apparently, yeah, they... well, it was a Pegasus and a tortoise, but the principle still stands.
Thankfully, no one got hurt, except for the crash landing.
That was actually one of my favorite reveals, was after Rainbow Dash rides what she calls a literal ball of winter down from Cloudsdale. It explodes in a giant white mushroom cloud, and then after the smoke clears, it's winter all over Ponyville. That was a fantastic reveal, and again, it brings back the fact that the humor in this episode was just so spot on.
I don't know if it was just me or if I was probably just reading too much into it, but the part where one of you guys called it out, it was Fala Equestria confirmed on this episode.
Yes. It's not fallout, it's snow. For now.
Also, the scene where we see the giant mushroom snow cloud, it kind of reminded me of Double Rainbow.
It wasn't rainbow laced this time, though.
No, but it was still the same concept. Giant mushroom cloud of snow instead of rainbow, and we get everything covered in white instead of dirt.
I love the conspiracy written for this.
Just as a quick point of interest, the night before this episode aired, a tweet was put up by everybody's favorite person in the world, M.A. Let's Put Wings on Things Larson, where he stated that there was one part in the episode that he was willing to take full responsibility for when it happened, and I am thoroughly willing to bet that it was the Game of Thrones reference, where Twilight outright states, "Brace yourselves, winter is coming."
Yeah, that sounds like something M.A. Larson would do. I tossed my headphones off at that point and walked away from the computer.
For those of us who haven't seen Game of Thrones or watched any of it, how do you know it might be from Game of Thrones? Or is it just because M.A. Larson said it?
The whole brace yourselves, winter is coming, it started on Game of Thrones as a line from one particular episode, but it grew into a meme, an image meme, where people would take the brace yourselves, blank is coming, and that's where that meme comes from. They just replace winter with whatever is approaching.
Okay.
Does anyone else think that M.A. Larson wanted to put that in an episode and they wrote an entire episode around it?
that could be a possibility right there.
It's a theory. I certainly wouldn't put it past them, knowing some of the show writers and their senses of humor.
And speaking of writing, can we talk about the writing for the song in this episode? That was just wow.
Let us talk about the song and the fact that Ashley Ball has really been bringing all of the right stuff through this entire season so far, whether it's Applejack's Lullaby, the stellar vocals on Make This Castle a Home, or today's song where she gleefully has Rainbow Dash sing about how she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she doesn't care because she doesn't want Tank to go away for the winter.
The care for the love and care that she's showing for an individual, namely her pet.
The entire montage, too, about her running around trying to stop winter from coming, it goes along with the theme of the Grinch that I brought up earlier when we had that small smile. Just the way that she was going about trying her best to sabotage the change of the seasons reminded me a lot of the Grinch trying to steal Christmas.
And that's something else this episode did fantastically, is it took a lot of references and a lot of allusions to and put it in this episode, and it didn't seem like they were forcing anything. It didn't seem like anything was kind of shoved in there to make it work. It just all worked smoothly and blended and made this fantastic episode.
What do we think about Rainbow Dash's characterization overall in this episode? Because I thought she was portrayed wonderfully. Like I said, the way that she reacted to Tank and what was happening, it definitely falls in line with what most people would feel when confronted with an inevitability like this. But then you also have her just acting like Rainbow Dash, because we've seen in the past that she does not take pressure well. She doesn't take situations like this very well at all.
Where do her loyalties lie? We see in what's the name of the episode? With Discord. What's the name of that episode?
Three's a Crowd?
You mean Discord's first appearance?
Yes.
Discord's first appearance was Return of Harmony.
Thank you. In Return of Harmony, she abandons her friends and all that to go save Cloudsdale. And then here in this episode, she abandons Cloudsdale for her pet.
Yeah, that is a good question of where her loyalties lie. Well, if anything, all in all, we know her loyalties lie with her friends. And if anything, Tank is considered more than just a pet. She's also said that Tank is her friend. It's still her, but at the same time, it felt a little turned up, so to speak. Angst up, I guess, maybe. Or that's just me. I mean, we've seen her act under pressure before, although most of the time that pressure is literally an action event going on where it's either going against the parasprites or having to fight down a bad guy or something. But when it comes to subtle pressures like everyday life, that's where she seems to trip up the most.
Okay, I can concede to that. That's understandable.
What about the other main six in this episode? Because I thought they were utilized very well. People have made harsh criticisms of the show in the past, how they will throw in all six of the main character ponies together and then not really have anything for them to do. But in this episode, I think they were utilized fairly well. They weren't there any longer than they had to be. They served a purpose to the plot in that they tried their best to make Rainbow Dash see what had to happen and tried to make her feel better when it did happen. So I don't feel like they were out of place. And the highlight of this was the crying scene, which I think was handled very, very well.
The crying scene, which was started by Fluttershy, pretty much. I mean, I don't know. Does it seem like she was being very, assertive, if anything? I mean, her attitude during that time kind of reminded me of the episode Putting Your Hoof Down.
I wouldn't call it being assertive, but I do think that it was a great show of how far she's come as a character, because she knew what had to be done for both Rainbow Dash and Tank, and she knew that she had to make it happen, so she did not hesitate to make it happen. She knew what was going to happen when she said what she said, but she knew that it had to be said.
It's the Breezy moment all over again.
Yes, except it didn't feel nearly as forced. So, continuity, yay!
Huzzah!
Yeah, for continuity. And also, you were mentioning the main six having their characterization right, not being stuffed in there just because they wanted all main six in there. But Spike was done well, too. He wasn't used for just physical humor or just as the little helper or whatever. He was a little part of it, but enough to continue the story on a little bit and add a little something.
I do love the fact that Rainbow Dash was trying so hard to say that tortoises were like dragons, trying to get Spike to tell her that Tank would not have to sleep through the winter.
And Spike wasn't having any of that. If anything, I think he kind of felt a little insulted that he was being compared to a tortoise.
Racism and confirmed.
Of course you would go there.
Of course I would.
So, does anyone have any other topics of discussion they want to bring up for this episode?
I feel like I can safely put this episode in the top 10. No. I'm going to say the top 3 of the best My Little Pony episodes for the show. For me, anyways.
I will have to agree. Well, at least top 10 episodes for me so far. I mean, there's still room for the other ones, but they just need to show up.
Not really a topic of discussion, but okay. Well, this was a short discussion this week.
Actually, I have one more thing that we might be able to talk about.
Okay.
My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. The episodes have shown in the past that you can almost kind of get away with a lot of major things, like for the fact that Rainbow Dash snuck into Cloudsdale, snuck into the Weather Factory, and caused who knows how much damage cost-wise and also facility-wise. I mean, yes, Winter showed up and all, but isn't there going to be like some repercussions, or did she just straight up not get caught?
I think the answer to that question is it's not really relevant to the plot, and I'm sure somebody is going to write a fanfic about it, so I don't really care.
Duly noted.
Gray, you got anything to say about that?
I do. With the Equestria that we've seen, ponies' jobs are based on their cutie mark or something to that extent. There was an episode where Pinkie tried a bunch of different things, but that's for another time. Here, Rainbow Dash is in charge of the weather control. So she is the head, the lead, whatever you want to call it, of Ponyville. She goes to Cloudsdale. You can say she can get in there however you want. But whenever she comes back, the winter's done. She could have gotten in trouble. And it was also stated by, I think, Pinkie, that Rainbow Dash doesn't want to do it again. I feel like that was an allusion to something happened. I don't know. But that's what I convinced myself to believe to make that little hole work.
You mean the fact that there were still repercussions and she's already learned her lesson and never doing that again?
Or that the repercussions took place off screen?
Yeah, more likely.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can go with that.
I mean, she has a cloud mansion. It's not like she could just, she can just pay off whatever she needs to.
Weather management must pay real good if she's able to do that.
Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted the possibilities for discussion for this episode with the small panel that we have. So, I think that we have reached the end of this episode. So I am just going to say thank you to my panelists, Gray and Webshoter, for joining us. And please give your closing thoughts on the episode. Gray?
I want to see more episodes like this. What was the writer's name again? I'm really bad with names.
Cindy Morrow.
Cindy Morrow. Write more episodes for Season 5, please. Don't take another 3-season break.
Webshoter?
I agree. I want, if anything, more episodes from Cindy Morrow, just as well as some of the new writers. But who knows? She may have already written a couple other episodes. We just gotta wait and see.
And I thought that this was a great episode, and I can't wait to see more, no matter what writer it comes from, because this was just a fantastic episode all around, and it hit all the right marks for what I consider to be a great My Little Pony episode. So, with that being said, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week. So, from all of us here at the Heroic Review, goodbye, everybody.
See y'all later.
Goodbye. See you in the future.